So there's a conversation that's been floating around the internet for a couple of weeks or even a couple of months, or maybe that's just the trend for this year. But I've noticed that you have a lot of women and mothers who are talking about how they regret having their kids. Or maybe they regret the circumstances around having their kids, which I think is normal. I think it's normal to look back and say, you know what, I really wish that I had my kids in a better circumstance. And I think it's healthy to say that out loud so you can also support other mothers in solidarity who feel the same way. Solidarity is how we build community, right? So I think it's normal. But also, when you look at how it could affect the kids, you have to be, I think, a little bit more productive with how you speak about children on the internet. I don't think it's normal to put down your role as their mother because they're seeing you as the largest asset in their life. And I don't think you should put that down on the internet, right? Put yourself down on the internet because you're putting down the role, which essentially you're putting down their value towards you, right? So I don't think that's normal, but I can understand mothers. I think they're trying to just be more, I think mothers are trying to be more proactive with how honest they are about having kids because it's really hard. It's actually really hard to have kids in this country, right? So I think mothers are trying to just be more honest about the narrative around motherhood because the narrative around motherhood is that okay, we're selfless, we're Mother Teresa, we have to put ourselves last, and there's no room for self-care. You have to put your kids first, your husband first, or other family members first, which I think is not healthy. It's not conducive to a healthy self-esteem. It's not conducive to a healthy view of yourself, right? Because you can't keep putting yourself last and then expecting to be full. You can't walk around with an empty cup and continue, and you have nothing to pour out of, right? You can't continue to give, you have nothing to give. So I think that when mothers are talking about them regretting motherhood, they're really trying to be honest about the narrative around motherhood because it's not functional to keep saying, oh, you have to put yourself last. It's not helpful. And many mothers are struggling with mental health. Many mothers are not diagnosed for postpartum. Many mothers don't have a place to go when they're experiencing a postpartum crisis. And I think that the discourse is productive in a narrow lens, but I think it's trying to make a way to expand the conversation around honesty and transparency with motherhood because we have the room, to be more intentional. We have the contraceptives. We're not living in the 1950s. We're not living in the 40s. We're not living in olden times, our parents' times, our great parents' times, Loretta Lynn times, where we had to just deal with getting pregnant because our husbands or boyfriends or lovers could not control themselves. We're not in that position. We have more power. But also with more power, you have more independence. And with more independence, you also have less community because you can provide for yourself. You're not dependent on your husband's income. You're not dependent on your husband's family. You're not dependent on essentially your community because you are so self-sustaining that you become your own island. And with that, when you do have kids, it's hard to expand that island. It's hard to trust people on that island. And so you end up mothering by yourself. So you're also in a position where you don't have anyone to trust. So you can't even take a break to address the self-care needs that you have. Individuals actually have, I believe, 5 core needs. It's the need for social, it's the need to be social, the need to eat, the need to for sexual intimacy. You also have the need to be creative. And let's see, I believe it's not the hierarchy of needs I'm talking about, but it's 5 needs of individuals. So I'm gonna look that up right now because I can't say on top of my head, but everyone has 5 basic needs. There you go. So it's the physiological needs, it's the safety needs, it's the love and belonging, esteem needs, and self-actualization. So these 5 needs are often depicted as a pyramid with physiological needs at the base and self-actualization at the top, right? So when you become a mother, these needs changed. They change and they're challenged. And when you're not given the space to explore these needs, it becomes a problem. And I think I believe, with the toxic patriarchy, with women constantly being dehumanized by males because males are socialized to dehumanize women after a certain age. After a certain age, men are socialized differently. Like, when everyone's a baby, everyone is socialized to be, babies. Yeah, there's some difference between male babies and girl babies, but for the most part, most people are socialized to appreciate babies as they are, right? I'm not getting into any politics about that, but most time people are seeing babies as innocent individuals that rely on older people to support their needs and to help them survive. But then when they get to a certain age, the girls are removed and they're socialized a different way that supports empathy, humility, gentleness, emotional capacity. When men or boys are then socialized to remove those traits, the traits that they had as babies and were encouraged to have, they're now being removed because boys have to live up to this toxic patriarchal standard that dehumanizes women in order to prove their superiority over girls and women. So they're not allowed to actually look at women. I'm not saying they're not allowed, but there is pushback when it comes to the toxic patriarchy and how men view women because they're not socialized to view women through a human view. That's why you have so many daughters who say that their fathers told them that they didn't see women as humans. They saw them as objects or a means to an end. So they are not socialized after a certain point to see men are not socialized after a certain point to see women as humans. So with that being said, there is this constant pushback when it comes to women in the narrative around motherhood because they don't get the support that they need. They don't get the support that they need because the society doesn't support it, that we don't have the infrastructure to support it. Unlike other westernized countries, when it comes to motherhood, they have support. But men, they're not in a position to, for whatever reasons, for many, many reasons I can get into, but it's supposed to be a short video. I just wanted to spiel a little bit about motherhood, because motherhood people look at it in a way of like a divine, some say calling. Some women have always wanted to be mothers, some are accidentally mothers. Some are mothers for political reasons, some are mothers, for various amounts of reasons. There's so many reasons why people keep their kids, right? But when you look at it, I appreciate the honesty, the transparency that's trying to be implemented in this discourse, around regretting your kids and regretting your decision to be selfless for like 18 plus years or like for the rest of your life. But I think it's not productive to do so continuously. Like I don't support talking down on yourself as a mother in a role, because I think it's bigger than just the role itself. I actually don't think it's the role that you are regretting. I think it's the lack of support. I think it's the country, making it very difficult to receive access to care when you do need to have a space so you can explore these needs as a woman and as a mother and get your needs met. I think it makes it very difficult. I think this country makes it very difficult to get your needs met as a woman. So I don't think they're actually regretting motherhood. I think they are being honest about the limitations and the outcome when you do have kids in this country. Then the outcomes are harsh. You are an island, essentially. You are a self-sustaining island because you can pay your own rent and you're not, at your husband's beck and call, if you even have one, right? So I think it's complicated. But I think there's a productive way to do it. I think motherhood is hard. I think now we can say that, we don't have to hide under this narrative anymore. And I think women are being honest about how hard it is, because it is. It's when you look after another individual in a productive manner, in an intentional manner, it is hard. It is a difficult task, but also it does have its moments. There is space that you can create, so you can go back or get your time as an individual So you're not always in this role. To be honest with you, I being a mother or being any one thing is not enough to meet your needs as an individual. Whether you're working and you're a career woman, that career is not enough to meet your needs. There is not one role that is enough for one person to define themselves as. That's why we are multifaceted with a complex brain and complex needs. There isn't one thing that defines us. There are many things that define us, but when you force an individual to see themselves as one thing, you are removing their capacity, you're limiting their capacity, and you're making it more difficult for them to exist as a complex being that there are. If we just all accept that we're all complex, I think it'll be much easier, and that you could be a mother, right, 1 minute, but you want to take a break from that role to go and entertain other parts of your being. I think we have to give room for that as well, right? Because being a mother should not be your end all be all. I do not believe that. I have 2 kids. I am not just a mother. I'm a woman with passion, ambition, personal obligations, personal endeavors, and then I'm also a mother. I'm also other things. I'm a potential this, and I'm trying to become this. Like, I'm not just, you can't define me as just one thing. And I think, I believe that we're moving towards being able to look at women and say that they're not just one thing. They're not your sexual object. They're not just your wife. They're not just, a particular role. They're many things, and they need room to be able to embrace all of those things. They're not just a mother. They're other things, and you need to give them space to pursue those other things. So that's just my spiel. I have a small channel. I like to talk just to talk sometimes, but I think this is important. And maybe I'll find a video that I could, attach as a reference to the conversations I'm referring to. But essentially, I'm pretty sure everyone has heard, childless women versus women with children. There is no there should be no conflict. I think we live in a wonderful time where women can choose to have children or not. Now, the person you have children with, will they be dependable? You have to sometimes find out the hard way. That's a different conversation. But to have kids, to keep your kids, I think we live in a wonderful time. So I support women who don't want to have kids. I think that's awesome. Live your life, I have kids, and I intentionally had my second one. My first one was adventure, but I intentionally had my second one, and giving the right man in the right circumstances, I would have more, but I don't have those circumstances, so I have my 2, and that's enough. So you also, there's hierarchies apparently to people's value, which I don't believe. I think if you have kids, you're valuable just as much as you have just as much value as a woman with no kids. I think two different people in 2 different situations bring very different qualities to anyone that they meet, right? So I think it's great. Women should embrace their options. If you want kids, have them. If you don't want kids, don't have them. I think life could be great either way. But that's just my spiel. So that's it. Just wanted to share.